Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. It is the 2nd of October, 2025, and, getting closer to the end of the year, aren't we? And good morning, Mike. Good morning, everybody. And, thank you. And Mike's also given us an introduction straight away to our first article, right?
Good morning. What's that introduction?
Well, anyway, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning. It is the 2nd of October, and what Mike says was RIP Jane Goodall.
Hey, Jane Goodall.
Right. So yes, she's announced. Jane Goodall Institute announced her death yesterday, and said that she died of natural causes. She was in the US, in California, visiting as part of a speaking tour.
Yes, she was still touring. I saw Jane Goodall back when she was in her 80s. And she said that. I was a speaking tour in Toronto, and I went there to see Jane Goodall because Jane Goodall is one of my heroes. I love Jane Goodall. I thought that Jane Goodall is one of the most important minds of our generation, perhaps in world history. and I actually saw her, and actually she does what she said on stage. She says, I don't have much time left. I'm 80, whatever she says, how much more time do you think I have? I don't. And in the meantime, good old Jane kept touring over and over and over again, everywhere she went. She was a tireless activist for conservation and women's rights, or actually more than just women's rights. She was just encouraged girls to be what they can be, like she did. Now, Jane Goodall, this young woman from England, kind of a nerdy woman, goes to Africa. She happened to have family friends who, in those days in colonial Kenya, had a farm, and she went to visit and met a fellow by the name of Dr. Leakey. And anyone who knows Dr. Leakey knows that
one of my heroes. Yeah,
he's another great hero.
Yeah,
of the world. Just recently, just a week before Jane died, I was talking to a guy from Kenya, and so he was telling me all about Kenya, as we were standing in line, and I was asking him, well, did Dr. Leakey still live there? Did the Leakey still? Oh yeah, they still live there. They still do their thing.
He's born there.
Yeah, he's a citizen of Kenya.
Yeah. He's born there. He's proudly Kenyan. He once was going to stand. He was going to stand at one point for as president of Kenya. He decided not to in the end.
No, it would have been a good look anyway. Like Kenyans need a black a traditional Kenyan leader to basically, I think, I think it was why that was a wise decision. It was just like Einstein turned down the presidency of Israel. It was wisely done. Even Mandela only served one term as president because he knew very well that he wasn't a politician.
And he was only, and he also did so as shared president, right?
I don't know this. He may have served as the only president. He did serve as the only president for a short while too.
Yeah.
But he knew very well that he was no politician. Leakey probably came to the same conclusion, and so did Einstein. Basically, I know I'm no politician. It's very nice of you to ask, but anyway, so Jane. A quick short story on Jane. She had no formal education, no real education that would anyone would have guessed that she would have been a leading anthropologist and primatologist of the whole world. She went there. She met Dr. Leakey. She was a wildlife lover, and she was enthusiastic wildlife person. And when she talked to Dr. Leakey, and she eventually became worked for Dr. Leakey. And once Dr. Leakey saw that she had talent, inborn talent, nothing that came from her university, but her own curiosity and her own abilities, he set her off to study chimpanzees. Diane Fossey was sent to look after gorillas, but she got murdered. And there's one woman that nobody ever remembers is the one that Leakey sent to study orangutans. Her name was Ursula or something. I can't even remember her name. I should have looked it up. Mm-hmm. But the most famous one, of course, was Jane Goodall.
Because Jane Goodall developed ways to communicate with the chimpanzees, didn't she?
Yeah, she got embedded with
in that regard. Yeah,
she got embedded with a troop of a family and of chimpanzees. She watched them. She gave them names, which was irksome to the scientific community at the time, and she made observations that contradicted the academia of the time about chimps. She saw that they ate meat. She saw that they ate termites, and they used tools to get termites. None of this was chimps were supposed to do. She embedded herself in the troop, became trusted, by the troop, so she could observe them. She ascribed personalities to the chimps, which is another thing that the academia at the time didn't like.
Yeah.
Because they had their preconceived notions of what primates were like, including chimpanzees. This study, her observations overturned the ideas we had of primates and primatologies. She, more than any person in the world, in combination, with help of Dr. Leakey, of course, but her observations and her work changed everything we understand about primates, and in so doing changed what we thought of ourselves as being the most dominant primate in the world. So when she went and looked and observed the families and how they worked and how they coordinated and the different personalities, there was that one female that was like nearly criminal. I think her name was Flo. So she observed the different kinds of ways mothers would work, the dominant and submissive males and all of that. And it was very revealing to us all. And we could make the correlations to human beings, and we could see quite directly that we are a primate, not too dissimilar from chimps, who are our closest relatives.
Yeah,
there's not a whole lot of difference. There's a little bit of brain power difference, and there's a difference in a few other things. But given time, you can see how we
organize that. Yeah, how we organize ourselves socially is very similar to how the chimps organize themselves.
Very, very similar indeed. And chimps go to war with other chimps. Chimps go to war with other chimps. Chimps go on hunting parties, which shocked everybody, and where they killed monkeys and ate monkeys. Nobody ever thought that was happening. And the combinations, they found that some of the males, brothers and stuff, would combine as power units rather than have one solitary male. The one male would be the main power, but he would have his generals basically, or his sidemen, and they would share power. And there was all kinds of different things she observed. And she, go ahead.
I was going to say that this is, to me, this is kind of what we're seeing now. Is we've said a number of people who we've liked musical heroes of ours that have died during the course of this program. A few that died before this program, like Tina Turner, David Bowie, and other people that essentially the generation, the set of people that our generation looked up to and looked at and said, well, I'm appreciative of the work that they've done in various spheres of human life. That generation is now dying.
Yeah, true. It's dying off. Even the Beatles, they're into their 80s. The Stones and other great groups that we've watched in musical. But I would insist here that Jane Goodall, although not nearly as famous as they are to our generation, will outlive the fame of the great athletes and the great musicians of our time, and be ranked right up there among the most important persons in history. And if you want to compare it to a musical person, it'd be like Bach. Maybe like Bach is universally appreciated. His fame outlived his time. That will be the same with Jane Goodall. 200 years from now, they'll look back at Jane Goodall as they look back now on figures like John Locke or Isaac Newton. Yeah, she's going to be up there as one of the giants of science.
Yeah.
And she was just a humble lady. Believe me, I saw her live. She is just a humble lady, a very humble lady. If you met her and talked to her about any other thing on the street, you would have never guessed the groundbreaking research she did and how she changed the world. And you would have said, this lady did that?
Right.
Because she was a very, very humble lady.
Yeah, and apparently she was a voracious reader as a kid, but she particularly loved Dr. Dolittle and Tarzan books.
Yes, because they were about Africa and about the animals there. And yes, and her first teacher, her major teacher, when asked, was her dog. She had a dog when she was a kid, and she went everywhere with that dog and did everything with that dog and learned about animals from the dog. She said that her first great teacher was her dog. But I would have to say part of that was she had an innate ability to observe and to learn and to think outside the box, because when she first came up with her revelations of the chimps that she observed, there was a lot of resistance there. That's not academically done right. That's this and that's that. It conflicted with the ideas that had already been established. And they said, well, this isn't real science. This isn't how it's done. You got it mixed up. And I remember one critic that did not criticize Jane Goodall at all. I remember reading this years ago. The one time she wanted to make an experiment to see what would happen to the group of chimps that she was observing. Normally they went around and they shared everything, and nobody get out. Every once in a while, one of them would get greedy or something. So what she did was introduce a bunch of bananas. And when she brought in this bunch of bananas, which was highly coveted by the group, the social order fell apart. Chimps were stealing it. The whole social network broke down. The family was threatened by this horde of, not a horde, but a pile of bananas that were highly coveted and were brand new. And each one of them wanted as many bananas as they possibly could and fought, and the social order fell apart. The females and the kids were getting left out to the side, whereas that didn't happen in the normal day-to-day course of their lives. She was criticized for doing that, for upsetting the society. But on the other hand, it was very, very clear what would happen. That's the same kind of thing that happens to humans. Imagine somebody going around throwing $100 bills around all over the place. You'd have people rioting. They would behave unnaturally. They would kick and punch. somebody would rip the $100 bills off of a child's hands and all kinds of different things,
Yeah, so social order broke apart exactly as that would do there. And the interesting thing is what she was talking about. We'd always assumed, or science had always assumed that man was the only type of being that ever used tools. And in fact, she changed people's thinking about that, didn't she?
Yeah, up until that time, they thought only humans could use tools, but she observed how chimpanzees could use twigs, and they would fashion twigs to go into termite mounds and stick the twig in, get termites, and lick them off the stick. That was a source of protein for them.
Yeah.
And when she said that, Dr. Leakey famously wrote back to her and says, well, now we will have to redefine the term tool.
Yeah, because in fact, actually, since she defined that, she observed that, it's been observed in other animals as well. There was a fish that utilized a similar type technique, dug something solid into a place where he knew that plankton were congregated.
Crows and ravens can learn that same thing. If they observe a chimp doing or another animal doing that, they will do the same sort of thing. They'll get a twig and stick it in. They'll use rocks and things like that to fill up a water container so that they can finally reach down and get the water. So they are, but to actually fashion a tool and use it, that's what the chimps were doing.
Yeah.
They actually fashioned a twig in order to fit into a hole to get the bugs out or the termites out and eat them. Yum, yum.
And in fact, and that's the important thing, is that they fashioned the tool. Whereas other, there's birds, there's a type of bird that actually drops eggs from up high in order to eat what's inside.
Yeah, there's all kinds of shrikes will get a mouse or something and then stab it on a thorn. And you could say, well, that was a tool. Well, no, they didn't fashion it. They used what was already there. The chimps actually fashioned the contours of the stick so that it would fit down the hole. So they knew that just any old stick wouldn't work. They'd have to fashion the stick, make it so that it could work that way. So I say thank you very much, Jane Goodall. You've added an incredible amount of knowledge to the humanity, and I hope that your work continues. She has a Jane Goodall, of course, Jane Goodall Foundation of some kind.
Yeah.
And she's
interesting. She went back to get a PhD in ethology at Cambridge University. So after she was a world famous, after her efforts had been found out worldwide, she went back to school.
Yes, and kudos to her. She her work would not be deniable in the long run. But if she went and she got the accreditation that other researchers in primatology and paleontology had, then she could carry that weight with her, going through a formal education and seeing nothing that conflicted with her observations than she did with academia. Now she had a PhD. She was Dr. Jane Goodall. Yeah. And now no one in academia can then turn their nose up at her because she was now one of them. I think that was a very important thing she did there. She didn't need to do it. She knew the veracity of what she had discovered and what she had observed, and she knew that others would only confirm or add to what she had started. But once she went and got her own doctorate, then she could say with authority of academia, this is what it is. And I changed my mind very little from what I have observed as a non-educated person to an educated person.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There's also a picture in this article with her meeting Prime Minister Trudeau back in 2016.
Yes, she would meet all kinds of different world leaders, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And no matter what side of the aisle you were on at that particular time, whether the prime minister were conservative, liberal, NDP, whoever would have welcomed her with open arms and recognized her as the mind that she was of our generation.
Yep,
so thank you very much, Jane Goodall. Rest in peace. I shed a few tears when I read that, and I think I'll probably shed a few when David Attenborough goes. He's 100 years old now, so he's the next probably to go. A sad person, but sad to see him when he eventually goes too. But these are two. Jane is an icon that will never be forgotten, and thank you, Jane.
All right. Oh, thank you. And moving on, Algoma takes delivery of its 100th vessel.
Yeah, that's exciting news, isn't it?
Yeah.
For the economy of the area.
Yeah. So two sister ships are scheduled to be delivered. Two further ships are scheduled to be delivered in 2026 and 2027. These are next generation vessels that will replace the oldest ships that are expected to be 40% more efficient thanks to improved fuel economy and optimized cargo capacity. There you go.
Yes, anytime you read something like this, when the doom and gloom scenario of economy, we can see our own economy shrinking. We can see the upset that the tariffs and wars have had on the economy. So you kind of get a bit crestfallen, and you worry about the next generation, if they're going to get work or the standard of living and everything. So when you do get a little bit of good news, it's good. Like, we've got another ship, and what means is it's a type of ship that is a self-unloading ship, and it will help bring prosperity to Canada.
Well, the good thing about this is everybody, of course, knows about Algoma and what it does on the Great Lakes system, and how it plies its trade up there. And that trade is probably worth billions to Algoma. They also serve other ports, other parts of the world, and for example, the west coast of Africa, Guinea, and other places. Again, bulk transportation such as grain, coal, bauxite, and other materials.
Yes, this is rather huge. I'm trying to get the article, but my phone is just not cooperating. I keep getting advertisements for I keep getting advertisements for for the anyway, here we go. Oh, geez.
Right, so this vessel is
selected.
Yeah, so this
it won't let me get away from this.
Yeah, this vessel is going to be managed by Canadian steamship lines, but it's an Algoma vessel.
Yeah, gosh. What the heck's going on here? My phone is just driving me nuts here. So anyway, so the idea here is the self-unloader. It's of a particular kind. It's very efficient. It uses up to 30% less fuel to drive it. Yeah. It's an international type of ship. And of course, bauxite, grain, any huge bulk that it can carry and self-unload. This is a very good thing. I've seen lots of the self-unloaders myself, and that was at Nanticoke Coal Yard, basically. So if I was to extrapolate from there and sort of envision something other than coal coming out of the holds, I could say it's an amazing thing. It really is. There's a set of conveyors that get all set up, and it just discharges its contents very efficiently to the area where it is to be offloaded.
So you put, basically what you're doing, you've got a crane, I'm assuming, that is helping move the stuff onto conveyors, and then the conveyors basically take
no, it's a conveyor system set up right inside the ship at the ship.
Yeah.
Well, the ship has a kind of
no, I'm saying the conveyor
its own set of conveyors.
Yeah.
And there is no big crane that goes down and picks things up or anything like that. No, it's a continuous system. It's a continuous system of offloading. So the crane itself has a system of conveyors and stuff and scoops that it discharges onto the conveyors that are connected with the shore.
Yeah. And basically, so it's going to put that place, put into, so it'll hang out, and the conveyors will drop the stuff on the shoreline.
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, in a prearranged location with the relevant port authority.
Yeah, I'm having a hell of a time getting that article.
Yeah.
Here we go. Oh, yeah, it keeps every time I bring it up, it says Thanksgiving sale. Well, I'm already a subscriber to it, so anytime I try to go back to the article, it just gives me the same thing again.
Oh.
And for some reason, it's giving me the business. It wants me to buy something I already have.
Yeah, I hate that. Yeah, which means you haven't logged in properly, but you don't know how.
Yeah, well, I've logged in, but and then it asked me to subscribe today.
Yeah.
Basically, I've logged in, so I don't know what they're talking about. So
yeah.
Anyway, well, here's a quick little article I just passed by, just as a mention here. It says we could probably talk about it tomorrow. As Niagara Falls City Councilor's criminal trial to be held next year, as I predicted.
Yeah,
Mike Strange's lawyers will try to keep pushing this as far away as possible to make sure it's more and more out of the public mind. So I think this is a strategy, but I'll get into that a little bit later. But the Algoma thing is a very good. It's 100th ship. It's a milestone. There are more coming. They will. It talks about a couple more coming on, and they're going to replace their oldest ships in their fleet.
Yeah.
So they're modernizing, and they're moving.
Typical of any shipping line, anyway. They're always. They're expanding by adding new ships, but they're also removing the oldest of the ships.
Yes, they're getting So they're not exactly adding to their fleet. In some cases, they're adding to the fleet. In other cases, they're replacing their older fleet.
Yeah,
with much more efficient. But that's a good thing. We find that a lot of investment in the Canadian economy is being stalled, and this predates tariffs. As you remember, we talked about this.
Yeah.
The Canadian companies and the Canadian economy as a whole, companies and other companies and mines and oil fields and everything were very, very reluctant to reinvest into their own companies. They were at a standstill. The productivity was down. They did not see the inherent quality of reinvesting in their own industries. Now, this predated Trump. So what was ever wrong with the Canadian economy, some of it was prior to Trump getting in. With the new administration here in Canada, we find that this is shifting, but it's shifting slowly.
Yeah.
And but the good news is here, of course, that they've reinvested into a much more modern ship to offload bulk cargo, and they're reinvesting in more, which tells you they see a future in it.
Yeah,
which is good news for Canada.
the other thing, of course, is remember a ship doesn't get built in a year or two. A ship typically takes about 8 to 10 years to get ready.
No, I don't think so. Not anymore. They have a once they get a good plan, once they have a it's been designed and proven, they have all that ready. The dock facilities that built it are already tooled up for it. So if there's a demand for more, they can go right at it and keep doing it.
Anyway,
So
yeah.
maybe the initial ship may take a long time to research and the demand for it analyzed. But once they do that, then they can start knocking them off. Because once the shipyard's all set up for it, right, away you go.
All right. Okay, so Hummel Properties now wants 9 townhouses on its Niagara Stone Road property. They put in development plans to Niagara on the Lake for 6 houses there, 6 townhomes. Now they've moved that up to 9.
Yeah. So now this is the old winery restaurant.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the significance of this is. This is all due to Niagara on the Lake. You can see here that the pressure in Niagara on the Lake is to consume more and more property for housing. It's just a matter of time that those properties will then continue to encroach upon farmland. That's my biggest issue here. Now, this is a property that was already designated for 60. Now they want 9. I think the demand in Niagara on the Lake is different than it is here. The demand here is to serve, it should be to serve the everyday person in Niagara Falls who makes about $65,000 a year if they have a good job.
Or less.
You know, the rate, and yet we don't see that happening here as much as we should. But down in Niagara on the Lake, there's more money there. People with more money end up going there. It is a preferred location for people who have a little bit more money. And the idea of the town keeping its character is essential. However, the demand for people to come to this quaint town is pushing them into making it a little less quaint. And so there's the rub there. Next thing you know, there's going to be a plaza.
It's always a problem in these types of towns anyway. Right, world over, you'll find whether it's in Germany or in France or Holland or England, you've got these quaint little towns and that have the challenge about how we develop the town versus keep the original character of the town. Somewhere like Stratford upon Avon has had that trouble for probably the last 100 years.
Yeah, so anyway, Hummel Properties recently settled this lawsuit against Niagara on the Lake. Yeah, I think I do remember that now because they were
looking for more.
It become illegal imposition. The Court of Appeals was the imposition of an illegal interim control bylaw on property, and so Hummel had some legal issues with the town of Niagara on the Lake, but they seem to have settled that, and now they're trying to expand these housing units in a more sophisticated way. They were ham-fisted with it for if I remember the articles correctly, and anyway, they may have seen the council approved the original 6, but now they want 9.
Yeah. And it's probably fair use. Those in 9 in that kind of area. If I remember the area rightly, I don't see any problem with it.
No, I don't. Well, that's up for Niagara on the Lake to decide. And basically, I'll say this again, that there's going to be more and more pressure to consume farmland. And of course, we don't have a whole lot of farmland in Ontario, not of that caliber. and that agribusiness in and around there is essential to the area. It brings in I don't know what at least $1.5 billion of money into the area. And those are old figures that I'm quoting, by the way, from articles that we talked about a couple of years ago. So it has only gone up.
Yeah.
We find that and right now the pressure on the quaint little town of Niagara on the Lake is going to increase because people of means have money and they want to move there and they want to be a part of this nice quaint little town. It looks good on their resume. It's part of I don't know, it's part of the prestige. It's like owning a Porsche kind of thing or Cadillac or something like that.
Yeah.
To own your house in Niagara on the Lake, as in Calogero Estates, it's kind of like, you're fluffing up. It's part of your, part of your prestige. However, the town is only so big and it's bounded by prime agricultural land. So there's only so much you can do. So now Niagara Lake has to make those decisions. I've heard that the people of Grimsby are kind of upset how their town is going because of the same pressure you can see in Pelham and Font Hill. That kind of pressure happening too, where once people move in, then they miss their conveniences and stores and malls and things like that begin to open up, and that quaint little town kind of disappears.
Yeah. It's sad, and sadly, it will likely eventually happen with Niagara on the Lake as well.
Yeah,
and arguably it was already happened with Niagara on the Lake.
Yes.
All right. Moving on. Canada denies Marineland's request to export the remaining belugas to a Chinese park.
What to do with the belugas? This is such a problem that even Doug Ford has chimed in and promised that the belugas will have the best life possible. How is that going to happen? And of course, away, we know the problem is we shouldn't have put belugas in a tank in the first place. But these are domesticated belugas, and some of them were born in captivity. What do you do with them?
Yeah. And in fact, there's not many belugas in captivity around the world anyway, because that's one of the unique things about this this troop of belugas, wasn't it?
Well, I've got one solution. They've got killer whales and they got belugas. So feed the belugas to the killer whales. That leaves, okay, now you don't have that problem. Now you just have to get rid of the killer whales.
You've just committed suicide there, amongst the ecological community there, Dave.
Yes, well, I know that killer whales will eat belugas. So I just thought, well, we can get rid of half of the problem by just feeding the belugas to the killer whales. But of course, I'm being facetious. And the very idea of like Marineland was a mainstay of Niagara tourism for a very long time. And you yourself have said you saw advertisements for Marineland when you lived back in the old world, in, what was that place called? England. And so back in the the third world country.
The normal advert that you get in England about Canada, come to Canada, come to Marineland. It used to be back in the day,
Yes. So the whole world knew about Marineland, but at the same time, there was this undercurrent of resentment towards Greenland, this idea that Marineland, because people didn't like the idea, began to be offended by the fact that wild animals huge, like orcas and belugas, are in small confined areas. This is against their nature. Dolphins, walruses, all of that. Most people think, okay, is when they see them perform, they see how smart they are, how wonderful they are. see them up close, are in awe of them, but at the same time, in the back of their minds, they're thinking, this is not the place for this animal. This animal should be in the wild. Should not contain these animals.
And again,
we shouldn't take an animal, any animal that is not that you cannot provide a good environment for, like the Toronto Zoo, which tries to make the environment for animals as good as it can. Putting animals in cages like we used to do for observations and stuff like that is not going very well. And I would say that Jane Goodall helped us along that road too, don't you think? When Jane Goodall begins to look at animals as an important part and not just something else other than humans, that animals are interconnected with the world as animals, just as we are, we begin to have a little bit more compassion for animals. They were not meant to be in cages. They were not meant to be in a tiny swimming pool. And that starts to work on people. So you have this fantastic tourist attraction, Marineland, that is now no longer thought to be that good.
Yeah. And again, the whole point about is Marineland, is changing ideas, etc., etc. Marineland, as a concept with animal, with marine animals on show 1,000 kilometers or more away from the coast, is today completely abhorrent to a lot of people.
Yes, so I can understand the reason why you would have zoos or even some marinelands if you are
saving animals.
If you're saving the animals or for fish or something that don't really know the difference, you're in a gigantic aquarium and they just go about their business as they would in the wild, and they're not endangered in the wild. But you do know that things like seals, orcas, walruses, they just do not fit that well with captivity.
Yeah.
So they have to be.
Yeah, it's inconsistent. Yeah, because they are much more thinking creatures than, as you said, the fish that are in the tank.
Yes. And not only that, it's just not a place for. Imagine putting, like we put our criminals in cages. Why do we do that? That's punishment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when we have a criminal, we put them in a cage called a prison.
Well, and
restrict their activity. That is a punishment. So why are we punishing these animals?
Yeah, and the other aspect of that, of course, is with criminals, is we're keeping them away from normal human beings because of the bad that they would do.
Yeah, we keep them away from regular society because they're a danger to regular society. So but these orcas and these seals and these walruses are not a danger to human society, though they should never have been domesticated in the first place. So I think the people have absolved themselves of ignorance. Basically, it used to be fascinating to go to zoos and see these amazing animals that you heard about or read about or saw on TV, and there you can actually see it.
Yeah.
But I remember the gorilla I saw in the Buffalo Museum one time. I remember looking at a buffalo or the gorilla, and they had him in a little cage, so there's nowhere he could go. He had to sit down, and he was looking like the most unhappiest creature I've ever seen. I also saw a lion in the same thing in a little bit of cage, so that he could be observed, and that lion looked just so unhappy and unhealthy. And I remember that. That as a kid looking at that. Yeah. So there is now if you go to a place like the Toronto Zoo, your lions get to move around. They have a gorilla expose where the gorillas run around, and there's a silverback, and They keep to their family group, et cetera, et cetera. So, and gorillas are endangered, so it's a good thing we have a steady supply of them here. Other animals that are endangered, it's a very good idea to have zoos and places for them to go so that we can repopulate them in their natural environment when that is possible. But to hold an orca, which is not endangered, a seal, which is not endangered, or a beluga, which is not endangered, I think the average person no longer is that ignorant person anymore who...
Yeah. The greatest experience with animals that I would have to say that I've had is, actually, other than seeing giant tortoises humping in Toronto, in Munich Zoo, the greatest experience I'd say I've had with animals is observing a cheetah in its natural habitat in Masai Mara, observing a herd of elephants in Amboseli, running free, running wild. And basically they were keeping up with a car that was doing like 25 to 30 miles an hour in the, out in the terrain in the jungle.
Well, let's go back to the first one. If we analyzed your computer, would we find a lot of tortoise porn?
No. No, it's just one of the, when you're saying about what animals you remember, and I'm sorry that you said
the first one on your head was two tortoises copulating.
The cheetah was the first one on my head. Then I said, but I do remember one animal in a zoo, which was the giant tortoises.
Giant tortoises copulating.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I mean, that's the first one that came to mind. Of course,
the mind boggles on that one, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Could you share those videos with me?
Yeah, but again, what do you do with belugas? There's been some movement. There is some special sanctuary areas around the world for dolphins that have been in captivity, for killer whales that have been in captivity. I would think that that's the place to go for the orcas, but I don't believe there are many of them.
Well, Doug Ford says he promises the best possible life for the belugas. It's a good decision not to send them to China. We don't know what China promised us, whether or not the belugas would be treated right or whatever would happen to them. But the whole intention here was to stop showing belugas in Marineland. So if they actually sold them to China, then the Chinese may do with them what we don't want them. We are no longer happy with having done here. So the best thing is not to sell them to another Marineland so that they could procreate and keep the whole thing going. Again, I'm sure that the Chinese can get beluga whales from other places. So what we don't want are belugas, though. But what Doug Ford has asked, I'm trying to get to that point. Even Carney's in on it. It says today's decision by the Carney government condemns these magnificent animals to uncertain future as a closed facility with no ability to pay for their continued feeding and care. However, it is said the ministry's decision is heartless and ignores the veterinary evidence, experts' recommendations, and the stark reality that every day a continued uncertainty risks the lives of our whales. That's okay. Where is the resources going to come if they can't get tourist money to help them care for the whales? Who's going to take care of them?
And Doug Ford is basically saying we need a proper home for them. Simple as that.
Where that's going to happen, I don't know, and it's going to be quite expensive. But some things you have a certain moral obligation to do it. And I think closing up Marineland, making it some other kind of amusement area is a very good idea. unfortunately for the family who's invested huge amounts of money over the time and never and only going with what the world normally accepted, having over the years found that their type of music are unacceptable, generally speaking, to people, governments, and others. What do you do now? You say, okay, we can't have these animals, we can't display them. So now we don't have money to take care of them. So who's going to take care of them for us?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and we certainly need to find somewhere. That's for sure.
For years, animal advocacy groups have urged Marineland to send its whales to a sanctuary like the proposed whale sanctuary project in Nova Scotia. But in a statement sent to the review last week, Marineland said it wasn't a realistic proposal because the facility doesn't even exist. And that's an idea and a fundraising website, not an option or operating facilities.
Yeah.
So yeah, they cannot be criticized for not sending them there when there's no place to send them.
Yeah.
It's an idea yet to materialize.
I wish them well with the idea. Maybe maybe Marineland could provide some funding.
The problem is these animals can't live on their own in the wild. We found that if you release orcas into the wild, they're not accepted by other pods.
Yeah,
they aren't. They can shadow the other pod, but the other pod does not accept them. And I think probably beluga whales would, in the wild, know how to feed themselves and how to organize themselves and all that. But you won't find.
But they wouldn't be able to
captive ones being able to live like that. So I don't really know what's going to happen. But number one, don't do this again. Don't start having marine lands like that again with orcas and seals and dolphins and things like that. As amazing as they are, I seen a harbor dolphin one time in BC at their marine land, and they had that thing doing amazing tricks. How high it can jump in the air! It was like a story and a half. It was huge, and yet all the time when that's happening, I'm wondering, this harbor dolphin is probably way happier, anywhere else. It's getting rewards for doing these tricks, but I don't know how happy that thing is.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Frustrated regional council has voted again to keep pressure on the province about homelessness because they basically once again they declared the state of emergency in 23, and they're pressing the province again for help.
It is the problem with no solution. What people want is more money. We don't have any more to apply to the problem. Let's put it in italics, the problem. So they're going to go to the government of Ontario and say, we need more money from you. Now, the Ontario government can say exactly what the region says. We're out of money. We're overtaxed. We have no more money to give you because we're in the hole. And why do you, we can only give you so much because we have fiscal responsibilities, but nevertheless, they're going to make their plea. Well, Ontario will give us more money. What then is Ontario going to do? They're going to go to the feds and say, give us more money? And where is that money going to be applied to?
Yeah,
that's not the
thing. That's all that the province can do is go to the feds and ask for more money. I think part of the problem that we do have, in my view, is that we as a province don't get back in the same proportion as to what we put into the federal government. Now, would that money go? Would that additional funds go into supporting homelessness? Or stopping homelessness? Probably not.
No. I don't think the province would probably step up with more money if it was assured that the problem will get better. But
Yeah.
what we're talking about here looks like more Band-Aids. We don't have enough shelters for the amount of homeless people we have. So when the temperatures dip or they get really hot or really cold, where are we going to put them? If we only have 200 dedicated beds and you have 300 plus homeless people at any given time in any given area, how do you then maintain them? And look at this. They are like 300, 400, maybe at one time they had an estimate of 600 homeless people in the Niagara region. That is a tiny minority of people consuming huge amounts of resources.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to set up shelters and feeding areas for people, for 600 people. They are, even though they have nothing, they don't pay taxes and whatever else, they are a huge strain on the taxpayer.
It's more than 600 people. I think that was said. It was, the last figure I seem to recall was about 1,400 in the Niagara region.
1,400, which doesn't surprise me. I do know that homeless people move around. I don't know how they move around. Homeless people from here end up in Toronto, back again. Sometimes that's the welfare agencies will ship them somewhere else to another community. Well, we know that Welland's got more soup kitchens than we do here. We'll give you a bus ticket, go there, but one way, you know.
Yeah, and there was I spoke with a homeless gentleman about 15 years ago, and he told me he came from Toronto to Niagara Falls, and the cops put him on a bus. They bought him a bus ticket, put him on a bus, and said bye-bye to him.
Yeah. I also know a social worker, that she told me that was common practice. They would try to send them as far away as they could. They would often send them out west, send them to Calgary or Edmonton.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have the resources to help you, but you know what? They do in Calgary and Edmonton. Here, we'll get you a bus ticket. They figured spending the money to get them out of town all the way to Alberta was a lot more cost effective than trying to deal with them and their problems.
Yeah.
So they all they do is they take the problems and dump it, like New York City did with the Roxham Road people, right?
Yeah.
New York City said, hey, you know what? We got too many of you. And guess what? Canada's a really nice country and they've got a lot of facilities and they'll take you. So they put them on one-way buses and ship them to Roxham Road, and they cross the road. See, all they're doing is, it's kind of hypocrisy. Oh, we welcome you, but guess what? We don't like you that much. But you know what? Canada will take you. So they dumped them on us.
Yeah.
So that's a common thing that's happening, but it still doesn't answer the core problem. And with the money they're asking for here is for things like more shelters, more treatments and whatever. But what they're not looking at is the core problem, and how do you address that core problem? First of all, how do you stop creating the homeless, right? And then once you have them, how do you reintroduce them back in society so they have realistic lives? Right now, there are people on the fringe. They don't even act like humans when they're all drugged up. That is their escape. The drugs are escape from their inability to be human beings and enjoy what a human being does. Listen to music, go to work, exchange, become a family or friends, and all that. That is all missing from their lives. So they exist, and they exist with the purpose of getting high, or they exist for the purpose of just existing, which is a tremendous strain on the taxpayer fiscally. So what do we do with them? When we ask for more money, are we actually, I don't think we should not ask for more money, and I think we should get more money because we still need those Band-Aid solutions. But nobody's drilling down on how to end this. And it's North America wide. I think it's even happening in Europe in a big way. You get these, there's just a segment of the population that is lost, and how do we return them?
Yep. All right. Absolutely. And it's a problem that's not going to go away. It's a problem that's ever present, and the only way we're really going to be able to do something about it is by working more with the feds and working more with the province, I think.
I think part of the problem is psychological. If you ask people, they get frustrated because the addicts or the homeless refuse help a lot of times, refuse addiction counseling, refuse anything of that kind,
And
because they have lost the ability to understand that what they're doing is not good
yeah,
for them.
yeah. All right. Yeah, and there's no easy answers, and every time we talk about this, we say there's no easy answers. In some respects, I see that what we need to be able to try to do is turn some abandoned properties into some shelters somewhere. Small. Adding a few units here and a few units there of shelters where there's some dignity for the homeless. I think is about the only way we're going to start to deal with it.
Well, even people who are motivated by faith or conscience to work in the shelters or help people are extremely frustrated
Oh,
by the
absolutely.
behavior of these people because they always have to clean up on them. They do, elements of them do grotesque things, which I won't mention here. Imagine trying to clean up a bathroom after some of these people have used them. They part of their ethos, or part of not their ethos, part of their conscience is to destroy things and
Yeah.
to make ugly their surroundings as their ugliness of their own soul has become. There is this is an addiction. Homelessness is part mental illness, and it does not. These people who are homeless are not a universal group. A lot of them rely on alcohol and drugs. Many others don't. Some are just mentally ill, and some are just on the fringes of society, and they're different.
Yeah.
And so it's a mishmash of people. To characterize them as one kind of person is not good. But I don't see any solutions at all, because when we are promised that if we have sort of halfway houses like we do on Summer Street there and in Buchanan, that this is the way to go. We'll the people here, once they're in here, we can treat them. These are the best ones. We can treat them and get them back on their feet, but it never happens, does it?
No.
And those few cases who have been able to accomplish that and get back on their feet and become clean,
Well,
those stories are few and far between.
and
They're
we
there.
we concentrate on getting shelter beds available. I think we need to be dealing with something else. We need to. It's not beds. We don't want people. A lot of homeless are saying they don't want to be in a shelter because their things get robbed. Right? They want to move into a small unit of their own. And that, I think, you get dignity if you move into a unit of your own.
Yeah, to a point, but you have to be ready to move into that.
Yeah, and as
Look,
Joyce,
when they were being fed, look, they take St. Andrew's United, right? When people took an effort to feed them when they came out of there in the morning, they would throw the wrappers all over the place, and the city would have to go and clean up the mess they made.
Yeah,
they didn't even have the self-respect to put the containers the food came in a garbage can. They just threw it all over the place. And when they have something they don't want anymore, they just throw it, and they don't even have that. So they've lost the ability to be, ordinary human beings with that have ordinary courtesy. Imagine you're feeding somebody that hasn't got any money and is hungry, and they need the food, and then you pay them back by throwing the wrappers and the food and everything out just out there on the street. The church or the city has to go around and then clean up the mess. You see,
but
we
again,
are.
The region is opposing the idea of encampments, right? but they're basically talking about we need to put people sort out some form of longer term care capability for these people.
Yes, but I don't know what's going to happen. People are going to think of them as wastrels and offscourings, as I've said before.
Yeah.
That general trend that they are a waste group of people, kind of like how we used to view white trash. They were on the edges of society. There was no ability. They existed there, and there was no ability for them to become real contributors to society. You just have to live with the fact that they're out there, and they're nearly like subhuman. And I'm afraid that's going to happen.
All right. We're going to have to call it a day right now, Dave.
Yes, and I'm going to bring up Gaza. The flotilla is being attacked probably as we speak. The flotilla to go to Gaza is being attacked. I say more and more ships go and go and go. After a while, they won't be able to stop you. So I would say more and more ships, more and more flotilla. Just keep sending them until you make contact with the shore. This peace plan that's cooked up by Trump and Netanyahu, the very fact that it was Netanyahu in it, you know that Netanyahu flim-flam Trump, and it's not going to be good for the Palestinians. Palestinians are pretty sick of Hamas. I can believe that. They might not be able to say it out loud, but they're pretty sick of Hamas. But they don't want the Israelis in there because they see the Israelis as the oppressors and murderers and expellers of their people. And this whole very idea is why don't the Palestinians, why don't the Arab countries accept the Palestinians? Well, you fools that think so, just remember that Jordan is mostly Palestinian from times past when the Palestinians were pushed out of what is now Israel. Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Libya. I was in Libya. They had refugees there, Palestinian refugees there. I knew Palestinian refugees that came from Syria. So these countries have already absorbed a huge amount of Palestinians.
Yeah.
You'll find them in
Egypt, of course, as well.
Egypt, the UAE, Iraq. A lot of them got pushed out into Iraq in the early parts.
How many Palestinians do we have here in Canada?
We probably have a fair amount.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
And they have a lot in the United States as well.
Yep, exactly.
Why is there this big Palestinian diaspora? It's because they're being pushed off the lands in which they lived.
Yep, exactly.
Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.